Okay, buonasera a tutti, good evening. I will make a short introduction and then I will leave the floor to Maurice. We are very pleased tonight to have Maurice Hadida presenting is a big area, main area of specialism in philately, which is the local and Sherifian post in Morocco. Maurice is a titular member of the Académie de Philatélie in France, is a fellow of the Royal Philatelic Society. He wrote a very Italian book, a very important book with Richard Garcia on this subject, which is very relevant also for Italy because, as you will see, one of the local posts has some connection with Italy. So thanks a lot, Maurice. You have the floor, and as usual, at the end, we have the possibility to ask for questions from the participants. Grazie a tutti, lascio la parola a Maurice.
Thank you, Bruno, and I'm really pleased to talk before my Italian friends and the friends of all over Europe, because I see that we have many attendants from different countries. And tonight I'm going to share with you my interest and specialization about Morocco postal history, and particularly tonight, the history of the local and Sherifian post, and some new discoveries, correcting some historical mistakes, and bizarre rumors. It means that it's a joke. It's to say that a lot of things were told during more than 1 century, and with Richard Garcia in our book, we correct all these mistakes and rumors, and we try to correct all. And with a special focus on the only Italian local post service of Carlo Matteo, and I hope that you are going to appreciate my glance to my Italian friends and my love for Ferrari, because I used the Rosso Corsa of Ferrari, and dear to the heart of Enzo Ferrari, to write the special focus. First of all, these two postcards show the recas. The recas were the backbone of the postal service in Morocco, not only for the local and Sherifian post, but for all the post offices operating in Morocco, the French, the British, the Spanish, the German. It was the only mean of transport of the mail during the 19th century and even beginning of 20th century. There were, in fact, indefatigable postmen on foot, physically very similar to the Ethiopian marathon athletes, able to walk at a pace of 4 kilometers per hour. And for example, at that time, there were no bridges, no routes, and they had to go across the land and cope with some people who were expecting them on the route to make a hold up, take the mail, and to steal the parcels, looking for jewels or values. So they were very important in the postal system in Morocco, and used by all the foreign post offices and the local and Sherifian posts operating in Morocco. Why we had the local post in Morocco? There are 3 main factors that led to the creation of the local post. First of all, the trade for foreign and native merchants in the coastal cities and towns. They need to communicate in a well-organized and secure way with their customers and suppliers in the main cities of the interior. And the entrepreneurs who started a local post extend the private courier services to the public at large to make it profitable. Each local post and courier service in Morocco was deemed to belong to one of the imperial powers. So now, the local post all issue stamps which met a postal need. And the catalyst for the issue of stamps was the introduction of stamps by the 3 foreign post offices operating in Morocco in the early 1890s, French, Britain, Spanish, because later at the end of the 1999 came the German post office. This led the local post to follow in their footsteps, And this section will highlight the 3 most successful local posts and a new local post discovered after over 100 years. How we measure the success? By the longevity. So I'm going to show you in a moment. So this is the first map of, it's an original watercolor map of Morocco in 1939, showing the location of the towns and cities serviced by the 20 local posts known at the time in 1939, and the nationality of each operator. So blue for the French, orange for the Spanish, red for the British, green for the green for the Portuguese, another green for Italian, and black for the German. And you notice that at the beginning I spoke about a new local post never reported before. This is why the map is with only 20 services. In fact, there were 21. So this chart is extracted from our book. I hope that you can read it. And we updated the dates of service. And this is in classification in order of decreasing longevity. So we started with the service of Marx and Company. They were German businessmen. That duration was 234 months. And you notice that at the end, we have services that the duration were less than 1 year. And to have a better view of this is a chart that explains why it is so difficult to get local post covers, because the stamps, you can find them easily. Some are quite expensive, but you can have a complete collection of the local post stamps, except maybe 1 or 2 issues, the doves. But this is a chart to show that the local post, which had the long life, that this means over 7 years, were only 3. Then medium life is 3 to 5 years. Here, 19%, 4. A short life, between 1 and 3 years, that is a very short life, 6. And 8 of the 21 local posts had a very short life, less than 1 year. And if we add here the 8 and 6, this means that that 14 on 21 local post services had longevity less than 3 years. And this is the better explanation that we found why the local posts on cover are so difficult to get and so rare. An overview of the postage stamps issued by the 21 local posts of Morocco between 1891 and 1908. I will comment just one thing, is that the local post stamps could fit in a thematic collection, because if you have a look, for example, here you have a sunrise, here you have a horse riding, here you have again a sunrise, here you have a landscape with a palm tree here and here, here a dove, so this is for the birds, here also, here a lion, and so on. So there is a lot of possibilities to use the local post stamps, not only for a local post collection, but also for a thematic collection. And we are going to start with the most successful, the Mogador Marrakesh, that was organized by Marx and Co. That were German businessmen who came to Morocco at the beginning of the 1890s. And they issued 2 kinds of stamps. The first one is the rate, they are the same, 10 cents was the first step rate, first step weight rate for a normal single cover. And here you have 2 covers of the Marx and Company local post. the address on the left item and on the bottom of the second item are written in Hebrew, and at that time we had the addresses. The addresses were written in Latin characters, or in Hebrew, or in Arabic. And a particularity in Morocco is that when you are reading this kind of Hebrew, for example, you are not speaking Hebrew, you are speaking Spanish or Arabic, depending on the origin of the guy who has written the address. If it is people who were living in the north of Morocco, and there were most of them originating in Spain at the end of the 15th century, you are speaking Spanish. And if they are people of the south, they are speaking Arabic. The second one, who had a huge success, and it was the first to be launched by Mr. Brudo. Brudo was, his father was the vice consul of France in Mazagan, and very important businessman in the trade of cereals. And his son, Isaac Brudo, took over the business at the end of the 19th century, and he had the idea in September 1891 here to start the first private local post of Morocco. And he was operating until July 1900. In the Brudo local post, we had 3 issues. The first one is on the left. Then he overprinted the stamps 25, he put 10 cents. So here we have a registered cover, and the rate is 35 cents. The rates mirror the UPU rates. Then on the he issued a second stamp. It was a sunrise, and at the end of the service, because they have some forgeries, so to fight the forgeries, he decided to issue a third issue. This is the Gazelle Hunt, and you notice the cockroach on the top of the stamps. It was to mark that he was a French service, and he was fighting against Morteo, who was Italian, on the same line. Just here you have 4 letters in Hebrew that they are the acronym of a small part of the ecclesiastes. And this is not going into details. These 4 letters were to say to the postman, warning, you cannot see the inside the letter, the correspondence. It was the secrecy of the correspondence. And if you wish to go ahead on this matter, I wrote an article for the French Academy some years ago. The third that we considered the most successful was the first through of Mr. Abu Dharam from September 1894 to December 1901, 88 months. And this is a registered cover. It's one of 3 or 4 items known to date. And now I would like to enhance the only Italian post service that was that of Carlo Morteo. And to speak about Carlo Morteo, I need to show you first his stamps. So the issue was, I'm going to come back. So on the left you have the 5 cents, a pair of the 5 cents, so to make up 10 cents of the first rate step. On the right, you have another cover with the 10 cents. And now I'm going to try to tell you the story of Carlo Morteo and his son Alberto. And you will notice my second glance is I tried to duplicate the Italian flag with the green and the red. So the Morteo family came from the Kingdom of Genoa, where Carlo was born in 1833 in Alaggio. His mother was of aristocratic stock. She came from the Montanaro family. And Carlo was a very successful merchant and his interest in Mazagan and Casablanca. Morteo's wife, Emma, came from Cardiff in Wales. And they lived in a palatial colonial house of the Portuguese period in the historic center of Mazagan. He came to official notice in the Italian community in Morocco when he was asked to accompany the Italian mission to Fez as translator for the Italian minister in Morocco, when he called on Sultan Hassan I, shortly after he acceded to the throne in 1823. And I'm going to show you then a picture with Morteo in this ceremony. In time, Morteo became very wealthy and acquired large tracts of land and property in Mazagan. He was also agent for the Compagnie de Navigation Paquet, who everybody knows it's a prestigious French shipping line that served Mazagan at the time. And he was also vice consul at Mazagan for Italy and Belgium. This is an engraving depicting the Italian mission to Fez to call on the new Sultan Hassan I. The Sultan is on his horse. The Italian minister is standing next to him, and Carlo Morteo is on the left here, on the left of the Italian minister here. He's quite young at that time. You will notice the walls of the city, because at that time, when a foreign delegation came to call on the Sultan, they were not welcome inside the city. They were welcome outside of the city, outside of the walls. So like other prosperous merchants in other Moroccan cities, at this time, he decided to establish a private postal service to link his business interests in Mazagan and Marrakesh. Notwithstanding that there was already a Shorifin service operated by the Sultan, so the Sultan of Morocco is the King of Morocco, and the private local post operated by Isaac Brido, as I mentioned just before. This service was then opened up for public use, and given his links with Britain through his wife and the British consular service in Casablanca was run by a friend of him, Morteo sought the support of the British postal service in Morocco. And in Gibraltar, the first mistress, Margaret Cresswell, who was in charge of the British postal service in Morocco at this time, it was agreed that the new local post would operate in tandem with the British postal service. But this doesn't mean, as it was mentioned in the catalogs for more than a century, that it was an Anglo-Italian service. It was an Italian service. The British postal agent at Mazagan, who was also British vice consul, was then Robert Spinney, who was also a businessman. Because at that time, most of the consuls or the vice consul were not professional. There were businessmen, and they also act as vice consul or consul. On 28 April 1887, a circular from the Gibraltar Post Office informed all the British postal agents in Morocco of the extension of the British postal service to Marrakesh by means of the Morteo local post. And this is why there was that confusion that I mentioned for more than a century. The stamps were printed in London by Waterloo. 6 values were issued: 5, 10, 25, 50, 70 cents, 5 cents, and 1 peseta. And the vignettes are based on the watercolor depicting Marrakesh executed by an Italian artist. All the stamps other than the top value were denominated in centesimi. The currency for which they were sold was Hassani centimos. Hassani centimos, the Hassani peseta was the currency used in Morocco at that time, but they used other currencies. And the top value was the Hassani peseta. The Morteo service was one of the 2 local posts who issued postal stationery postcards. 3 denominations were issued: 5 cent blue on blue, 10 cent pink on blue-green, and 20 cent dark brown on pink. At first instance, the cards measure 165 millimeters by 96. and were later subsequently trimmed to reduce them in UPU size and then measure 140 by 87. I'm going to show you in two slides some postal stationery of Morocco. The rate for a basic rate internal letter was initially 10 cents, and the registration fees was 25 cents. The mortar stamps were sold over the post office counter at the British Postal Agency in Tangier, the principal office in Morocco, as was the case in 1898 with those of the first machinist service. The same thing occurred for the stamps of Bordeaux with the French post office. They were subsequently sold at all the other British postal agencies in Morocco and also at the Italian consulate in Mazagan. And the day stamps used by Morteo on letters carried by his local post simply contain the name of the city in European characters and in Arabic. Morteo's office stamp and his printed forms, you are going to see them also later, were in Italian and inscribed Servizio Postale Italiano, showing that it was a purely Italian service and not as represented in the past an Anglo-Italian service. Three formats and types for the registered letter receipts have either been recorded. Two bear the name Alberto C. Morteo, Alberto C. of Carlo, Alberto C. Morteo. At left, the third reads Servizio Postale Italiano. The fact that the registered letter receipts bear the name Alberto Morteo and not that of his father Carlos suggests that the day-to-day operation of the local post was in Alberto's hands. So this is two postal stationery. On the left, with the initial size, and on the right, when it was trimmed to meet with the UPU size. I'm going to explain a little more these two postal stationery. The first one is the postal stationery 5-cent blue on blue with an additional stamp of the 25 over printed 10, because at the moment, Morteo had a shortage of his stamps of 10 cents and waiting a new delivery by Waterloo, he overprinted the 25 that was probably less sold and less used with 10. So this is 50 cents from Marrakesh to Mazagan, to a maritime agent. On the right side, this is the postal stationery 10 cents pink on pink. Unfortunately, I don't have I can't show you tonight the postal stationery 20 cents. It is brown, but this is on the right side. It's very interesting postal stationery because it's a mixed franc. Have the 10 cents here plus the 5 starting from Marrakesh. Then it was remitted to the British Post Office to brought it to Tangier, and it was not enough franc, so it was taxed on arrival here, but the British Post Office. So here we have cancellation of Mazagan, Morocco is this British Post Office in Mazagan. Here the due tax of the British Post Office in Tangier on arrival. And Hassan and Joachimson was a very important German company established in Tangier in the 1880s and had a very important turnover in different businesses. So Mazagan, Marrakesh, 39 months of duration. Here is another cover. It's the only item. It's the only item known to date when Morteo to be competitive against the Sheriffin Post, who asked 8 cents for the single rate, overprinting the 10 cents with 8 instead 10, as we have seen just before. And the 8 on 10, this is the only item known to date with this stamp and to go from Marrakesh to Mazagan. Here is my favorite cover of the Morteo local post service, and this is the only known item to date also, with 3 stamps and a half to make up 35 cents for a rigid cover sent to Alberto Morteo in Mazagan. Thanks to the Morteo archive, we are able to have covers of this local post because they were always in correspondence with his mother who lived in Marrakesh, or his sister. So this was this is the reason that it's addressed to Signor Alberto Morteo in Mazagan. And 3 stamps and a half is my favorite cover, and I'm glad to share it with you. This is what we mentioned before, the receipt for the receipt cover, and you will notice that are written in Italian. Alberto Morteo, Servizio Postale Italiano, and here lettera raccomandata. And ricevute oggi with the date, una lettera indirizzata and the address of the addressee, and it was signed here by Alberto Morteo. And here is the cancellation that I mentioned also, the Servizio Postale Italiano. So this is the 3 times that we record with Richard. And this is particularly interesting because it's the only that we have met to date with a stamp, 50 cents for a cover sent, registered cover sent to Tangier. Now, to finish the story of Carlo Morteo and go ahead with the Shoreham Post, I would like to tell you the end of the Morteo's local post service. Shortly after the German post office in Marrakesh opened on 11 July 1900, Morteo decided to send letters entrusted to the local post by the German post to and from Marrakesh. And Robert Spinney, who was the British postal agent in Mazagan, got to hear of this, and he informed the postmistress Margaret Creswell in a private letter on 21st July 1900 and asked for instructions on whether to continue using the Morteo service for letters arriving at Mazagan by the British Reka, or whether he should hand over letters for Marrakesh to the German post office. But Mrs. Creswell was probably very busy, and she didn't pay enough attention to this letter. Some months later, in March 1901, Spinney again sent a private letter to Miss Creswell, this time informing her precisely of what Morteo was doing. He would make up letters entrusted to his local post into a parcel, which was sent via the German postal service at the parcel post rate, thereby making an additional profit on the side, particularly as he had ceased to employ his own records. So he has no more expenses, and he took advantage of the parcel post rate of the German postal service that was very competitive. So this is the copy from the Gibraltar National Archive of the Colonial Secretary's instruction to Postmistress Creswell on 11 May 1901, the sale of Morteo stamps to be discontinued at the British postal agencies. So he lost the trust of the British Post Office at that moment, and the British support for the Morteo service was therefore withdrawn, and the sale of Morteo stamps at the British Postal Agency ceased on 13 May 1901 at Tangier, and shortly thereafter at the other British postal agencies. They were thus sold at the British Post Office agencies for over 10 months after his courier service had ceased to operate as such. This means as an independent entity with its own records and postage stamps. And we consider with Richard Garcia that any letters or postcard bearing stamps of the Morteo local post and used between August 1900 and July 1901 cannot be considered as having gone via the local post on the leg between Mazagan and Marrakesh, or vice versa. As Morteo's local post proper ceased its full operation in July 1900, this is why we stopped in July 1900 in the table that they shown at the beginning, and not in July 1901, when all his postal activity came to an end. It is deemed to have been active for 3 years and 3 months. This is why we considered he was in activity for 39 months. I have to point out that I had never met to date a cover of Morteo after he ceased to employ his rekas and used the German parcel post service. So we correct historical mistakes, saying that Morteo Local Post is a purely Italian service and not an Anglo-Italian service as believed for a century. And this cover is in the front cover of our book, and is also one of my favorites because it's a mixed franking between the local post, 35 cents, from Marrakesh to Tangier, and in Mazagan, the British Postal Agency franked with 40 cents, the 25, 35, 40 cents, the rigid cover, to make the transport from Mazagan to Tangier. Another historical mistake that we try to correct is that these stamps, I don't know why in the catalog it's number 1, because what is quite odd is that this was the penultimate local post service in activity until we discovered the newly discovered. But until 2018, it was believed to be the last one in activity in 1906. And the stamp on the left is genuine, and it's quite rare. But on the right side, you have the reprints of this local post, and it was produced over 20 years after the end of the service. And it was still, at the moment we wrote the book, it was still listed in stamp catalog without explaining that they are bogus. You will see that we have a good end of this story at the end of my PowerPoint. And why he did the entrepreneur of Damdan Marrakesh was Mr. Firbach. Why he did this reprint? Because I'm lucky to have a documentation of a former important collector of Morocco who was living in Morocco and acting as a French vice consul in the north of Morocco. And he attended a philately exhibition in the 1926 or 1927 in Marrakesh. And the British collector sent to this exhibition, at the time people were not exhibiting covers like today, they were exhibiting stamps. So this stamp was sent by a British collector. And the collectors who attended the show, French, Spanish, Italian, Moroccans, and many nationalities, discovered that this stamp was unknown for them. So they pressed Firbach to say, "Oh, you have issue a stamp, please sell us some items." So at first instance, Firbach found some copies, some items of the original, and they sold, but it was not enough because we have to imagine that in 1926-27, philately was in a bullish market. So he decided in the 1930 to reprint the stamp, and this is one. This is the reprint, but it is a bogus. Correcting bazaar rumors. This is the local post. Just before that, Marx started Mogador Marrakesh. Two businessmen, Mr. Maïmaran and Mr. Irvine, who was French, started the local post between Mogador and Marrakesh. To date, we know no cover and no piece with this stamp. So for more than a century, everybody was believing that this stamp was made for collectors. It was philatelic issue. It was not made, it was not issued for postal purposes. And 2 years ago, thanks to David Beach, that I asked to provide me with a copy of the Times of Morocco. Times of Morocco was a weekly magazine issue in Tangier in English. And in this, because in a book about Morocco in the 60s, it was mentioned that in the Times of Morocco of the 14 May 1882, it was mentioned the beginning of this local post. So it was quite difficult because we were in the pandemic. It was very difficult to access the British Library or the Harvard Library or the Congress Library in Washington. They were all closed for the public. And it was because in Harvard and Washington, they have a complete collection of Times of Morocco, but in the British Library, they also have a complete collection. And thanks to David, I got the copy of the Times of Morocco of the 14 May 1880. And what is interesting is that at the bottom, a particular courier service, the week's news of the correspondent in Mogador. A particular courier service was started on the 10th instant between Mogador and Marrakesh, mainly through the instrumentality of Mr. Irvine, the rate of postage being 25 cents for each letter, not weighing more than a half OZ. And you will notice that here we speak about 25 and the stamp is 20. So after this discovery, we try to imagine why we have a stamp of 20 and the notice of 25. And in fact, and this is why we wrote an addendum to our book that was sent to all the buyers of our book by the Royal Filatelista Society, because our book was published by the Royal Filatelista Society. And last year, we wrote an addendum and was sent as a PDF file by to all the buyers of our book. And with Richard, we decided to print 100 copies to gift our personal relation and important institutions like the Royal, like the Collectors Club New York, like the Smithsonian Institute, the British Library, and so on. So the explanation to the 20 and 25 is that when the Irvine and Malmoran ordered the stamps decided to start with 25 at the beginning, they have no stamps. Then they were confronted with stiff competition with Brudo, and the business of the local post didn't reach their expectation. So they decided to reduce the rate to 20 cents. And this is why the stamp was ordered with 20 cents, and it mirrored the design of the Brudo stamps, the first one. The only thing that changed is Mogador à Maroc, because at that time, Maroc is Marrakesh. When you see Maroc in old covers or old books, it means Marrakesh was one of the two imperial capitals of Morocco with Fez, and at the time was also Meknes. So they ordered the 20 cents and 25 in the hope that they will be competitive. But what they were not aware is that between the order to the printer and the reception of the stamps, Brudo decided to reduce his rate from 25 to 10 cents. So it was impossible for them to be profitable. And why Brudo decided to reduce 10 cents? You have noticed the first cover that I have shown you with the first issue 25 cents and 25 cents overprinted 10, because he was aware in June 1882 that the King of Morocco was going to start his own courier service. And it was expected to be at 8 cents. So he decided to reduce his rate to 10 cents. And at the same time, he pushed Malmoran to bankruptcy in this local post service, and they stopped. And then Marx and company showed that there were maybe something to do with Mogador, Marrakesh, and they started the service, was so successful. So, and now the newly discovered Safi Marrakesh, German local post, that was not known until our discovery. How I discovered this local post service first? Researching in the French diplomatic archive in Nantes and La Courneuve for our book. The last day of research, I came through a note of the French postal agency in Safi, reporting to the vice consul in Safi that he met that very morning, Mr. Marx, who was very angry to see that the French and the British were developing a record service between Safi and Marrakesh, and as he was very keen to represent the German nationalism and colors, he decided to launch a service between Safi and Marrakesh, and trusted to his agent in Safi, Weissenmohr, because Weissenmohr was a very old German film also established in Morocco in 1879, and the Marx bought out the Weissenmohr in 1906. And he was going to launch a service to compete with the French, even if it was not profitable. So when I found this information, you can imagine that I had a shock, because nobody has never heard about a local post service between Safi and Marrakesh organized by Marx. I reported this discovery to Richard. Richard is very complimentary with me. He said, well, be prudent, because at that time there already were fake news, and it's not sure that they have gone ahead with the project. Okay, but when I asked for pictures to different collectors to illustrate our book, a German collector sent me 11 or 12 scans of very selected items. And when I opened the files, I found this cover. And you can imagine that I have a second shock, because this was the illustration that the information found at the French National Archive was put in action by Marx Brothers, that have nothing to do with the actors. They were less funny, believe me. So this is a newly discovered Safi Marrakesh in 1908. It's a German local post, and this is today the only cover known to date of this very elusive German local post, because we think that as they had no chance to be profitable, they have probably not prolonged the experience to maybe 2-3 months or something like that. So it's a real rarity. And what is interesting also, it's a mixed franking, because the cover starts here from Safi, from Marrakesh to Safi. It is stamped with the commercial cachet of Weissenmohr with the date of 18 May 1908. Then it is entrusted to the German post office in Safi to go to Marienbad, and the guy who wrote the address had made a mistake to saying that Marienbad was in Germany. This Alemania is Germany in Spain, in Spanish. In fact, Marienbad was in Bohème, and at that time it was part of the Hungary-Austrian Empire. So when the cover came to Germany, it was redirected to Marienbad. It was taxed because it was not enough franc, because the German post office from Morocco to Germany applied the German rates of Germany. But from Germany to from Morocco to Austria, they should be franc with 25 cents and not 10 cents. What is interesting here or strange is that, or curious, is that the Austrian clerk considered that the lack of franking, there was insufficient franc of not 30 cents that was here erased, but 5 cents, and the double insufficiency is the 10 cents here. Why? Because he considered that the 10 cents of the German post office and the 10 cents of the local post were valid. So he taxed only by 10 cents. It's a gem discovered. And I'm very pleased to tell you that in the meantime, I was able to buy it because the owner, when he he read our book, discovered that he had a gem and decided to put it at auction. And I was pleased to be able to buy it. Now I have finished the local post, and we are going to the second part of my talk, and that is the Sheriffin post. You will notice that the local post and Sheriffin post were not UPU posts, and I'm going to explain in a moment why. So the Sultan, so the King of Morocco's reaction to the first local post, the successful Brudo service between Mazan and Marrakesh, alerted him of the dangers of allowing an internal postal service to be operated by private entrepreneurs. First, it deprived him of postal revenue. He tried to buy out the Brudo service in 1891. Brudo refused to sell, and when this failed, he created the postal service by royal decree on 22nd November 1892. This is the Sheriffin post, and the cancellations that are known as cachet magazine, we consider with Richard that there were stamps, and the magazine stamps is the introduction that we made in our book instead of cachet. And we have a trial period before the magazine stamps. So we were able to determine the dates of usage and duration. We were going to see that are very short duration. Then, considering that the trial period was a success, he introduced a permanent issue of two formats, octagonal and circular. We explain the colors because we are going to see in a moment that for the magazine stamps, they use 6 different ink colors, and nobody was able to explain why there were different colors. And we tried to assess their respective rarity. So the trial service, we think that it is the provisional stamps, and it started from the end of February 1882, based on the successful Brudo local post. Why we know that it was February 1882? Because in the French National Archive, I came through a note of an employee of the French embassy, French consulate in Fez, reporting that in February, the king, the Sultan, organized a meeting with the main merchants of the city, saying that he was not pleased to see that the local post was operating in his country, and he was thinking about launching a Moroccan postal service. He asked them if they approve his initiative, and they all said yes, go ahead, we are going to use the Moroccan service. And this is why, thanks to this note found at the French National Archive, we know that they started not before February 1882. The Sheriffin post did not issue adhesive stamps at the beginning, and like the local post, the mail was franked using hand stamps known as magazine stamps. There were 7 forerunners of the Sheriffin post in 3 different formats that are known to date. The first format is the Mazagan Marrakesh and Marrakesh Mazagan. I'm going to show all the forerunners in a moment. Then a second format was Meknes Fez, Tanger Rabat, Larache Tétouan. You see that it was inspired of the local post from town to town. And the third format was Marrakesh 1310 and Mogador 1310. 1310 is 1892 in the Arabic calendar. And thanks to our researches, we can say that they were in use for between 4 and 9 months. So a very short period, and this is why they are so rare. Here you have a slide with the 7 forerunners, the 3 types of provisional stamps. Here on top, we have the first type, town to town, just a town. Here, town to town, second type. And here, the third type with 1310 here. So here is the Mazagan Marrakesh. This is the Marrakesh Mazagan. This is the Meknes Rabat. This is the rarest. This is the only item known to date, Larash Tetouan, and in orange is even more interesting and appealing. And here is the third one, the Tanjur Rabat, Meknes Fes Tanjur Rabat. And then the third type here at the bottom is Mogador. The oval Mogador 1310 is very rare. And the most common, if I can say, because when I say common, this means that we know less than 10 or 15 covers with this cancellation to date. It's quite rare, but it's relatively speaking the more common of the 7 forerunners, the Marrakesh 1310. So the royal decree of 22nd November 1882 extended the Sharifin post to all towns in Morocco. 13 cities and towns were serviced by the Sharifin post. They were each supplied with octagonal and circular hand stamps and ink pads. The circular stamps were initially for closing mailbags, and for post office bulletins listing the contents of each mailbag. Additionally, found on official post office correspondence, even if addressed to private individuals, the magazine stamps also used on redirected mail as a transit mark or even as an arrival mark. And these practices gave rise to covers bearing stripes of 2 different magazine stamps, and they are the main rarities of the Sharifin post along with the forerunners. 6 different color ink pads were used: violet, black, blue, red, green, and orange. Stripes in all 6 colors from each of the 13 cities make a total of 78 octagonal and 78 circular stamps if you wish to have a complete collection. This is the 6 colors of ink pad used for the octagonal magazine stamps. Here we have the violet of that one. Here the black of Larache. Here the blue of Azemmour, it's one of the rarest with Arksar. The red of Rabat. Here is the green of Mogador, and here is again that one with orange. The 6 color of ink pad used for the circular magazine stamps. So here Tangier in violet, Meknes in black. Here is Azemmour in blue, in red. Here is Mogador in green, and here is Rabat in orange. And here's a combination of an octagonal and circular magazine stamp. Here is a cover with the rarest colors that are the green and the orange are the rarest colors, and the more common are violet, black, and blue. The cover was sent from Tangier to Fez, and here on diagonal you have a mention by the post, the Sharifin post, saying we have not found the addressee is traveling, so we send back this cover to you, and this is we have a circular magazine stamp green of Fez to send back the cover to Tangier. It's really a very, very rare combination that only known to date. In general, when you have 2 cancellations, they are mainly and almost unique items. Here is a cover from Casablanca with the octagonal orange. It's a very rare color also. Oh, sorry, the circular red of Casablanca, and on arrival at Mazagan, the orange octagonal. All the covers with combination of mags and stamps, 2 octagonals or 1 circular and 1 octagonal, are the rarest items along with the forerunners and unique items. Then on 25th May 1912, the Sharifin Post Office issued adhesive stamps, 6 values, in order to better control its income. They were the first adhesive stamps to be ordered by and printed for the Moroccan government. And on 1st October 1913, the Sharifin Post merged with the French Postal Service in Morocco, and they created the Office Sharifien des Postes. In Tangier alone, the Office Sharifien des Postes adhesive stamps continued in use until 1919. Here's what it looks, the Syrian post office adhesive stamps. So on the left, we have a rigid cover with the first issue that's narrow margins, with a mosque of Tangier, 10 and 35 cents to Casablanca, and then starting from Rabat to Casablanca. And then the second issue with large margins on 12 January 1914, 10 cents is the single rate for a single cover. Now I'm going to explain why we have combination francs in Morocco. The local and Sheffield posts, including the official and post, when they merge, were outside the UPU. So letters addressed abroad franc with local post stamps, magazine stamps, or official and post, this means the stamps of the Sheffield post, had to be used in combination with postage stamps issued for use in Morocco by foreign countries which were UPU members. That was French, British, Spanish, and German post offices. Similarly, incoming letters from abroad addressed to a city in the interior of Morocco and carried on the last leg of its journey by local post, the Sheriffin post or the official post had to bear a local post stamp, a magazine stamp, or stamp of Sheriffin post for internal postage. I have to point out that the mixed francs combination francs are rare and very rare in general, but when they are for the last leg of the journey, they are even more rare. So here we have a combination with the British Post Office. So local post here and British Post Office. Local post here with French Post Office of the service Mazagan Marrakesh or Brudo. On the left side, we have a registered cover with AR. So this is, and this was very difficult to understand the franking if you don't know the rates of the British Post Office, because we don't have a mention of AR here on the cover, but when we see the rate was the franking was which was applied, it's the explanation is that it's a registered cover with AR. The second thing very important to know is that until 1897, the local post franking was not only the value of that they have to pay to the local post to make the trip between Marrakesh and Mazagan, for example, but it also included the foreign post office, because you have to imagine, you are a customer, you come to the local post, you are not really keen to pay immediately the fees for the local post, plus the fees for the foreign post office that's going to bring the cover until the destination. So to entrust to be in trust with the customers, the practice of the local post services was to put in front, under the eye of the customer, stamps of the local post of the total value that have paid at the counter of the local post. So when you have here 4 stamps of 25, this means 1 peseta. This is they accumulate the rate of the local post, and here the 55 cents of the British Post Office. So there are 55 cents of the British Post Office for a registered cover with a year, and 45 was the rate of Brudo for registered, 35 registered, and 10 cents for a year. So this means that 55 plus 45, for 55 and 45 with 45, the total is 1 peseta. Here we have the same thing with the second issue of Brudo. So it's a single letter to Algiers in Algeria. So 10 cents was the rate of Brudo, 25 cents for the rate of the French Post Office. So as he's going to ask the customer to pay 35, the Brudo agency put 25 and 10, and on arrival at Mazagan, they had the 25 cents paid by the customer to pay the French Post Office for transport the letter to Algiers. Another combination franking with German post is this is a Brudo, the third issue with the gazelle hunt, with the cockroach that I mentioned. And this cover starts from Marrakesh with 35 cents because it's a rigid cover. And in Mazagan, the German post office added the 50 cents that it was the rate for a registered cover from a German post office in Morocco to Germany. It was not only in 1907 that the German post office decided to apply for in Morocco the same rates that in internal to Germany. Another combination franking is for the last leg of the journey, and this is even the rarest combination franking with the last leg. This is a cover who started from Leipzig in Germany, was sent first to Mogador, and then readdressed to Morocco City. Is like I had told before, Morocco City, Maroc is Marrakesh. So then the local post took the cover in Mogador, brought it to Marrakesh for the last leg of the journey. And this is also the only item known to date with this kind of combination. Another combination franking for the last leg of the journey is the German post office of Fez sending a cover to Marrakesh, where the Sharifian stamp post acted for the last leg of the journey, probably outside the outskirts of Marrakesh, with the Maxim stamp in green Marrakesh. Another combination cover with the French post that time is with the stamps issued by the Sharifian post. First, the first and the second issue together, narrow and large margins. Sorry, is the narrow margins post. 35 for the registered cover for the Sharifian post, and to go to Oran in Algeria, they need to ask the French post office to bring the letter from the place in Morocco where he was remitted, then from Tangier to Algiers. Because something that you might know is that the Sharifian post stamps were not allowed to go out of Morocco, and the soldiers who were French soldiers who were operating in Morocco had free franking to send their covers to France or Algeria or other countries, only to France. But going through Casablanca, if they go through Tangier to be faster, because going by Tangier was mean to reach to make travel the cover in a shorter time, they had to frank the cover. This is why you have a mixed franking with the French post office. Another mixed franking with the Spanish, even more rare, because to date we know two or three combination frankings with the Spanish post and the Sharifian post office. So from Rabat, with the combination in Tangier to go to Madrid, to a bank. And reaching to the end of my talk, combination franking with the German post, the Sharifian post here, and in Casablanca, the cover starting from Casablanca to Mazagan, with a combination between the Sharifian post and the German post office. And to dive further into the local post and Sharifian post, I will advise you to read our book, and even if it is sold out, was sold out in the 8 months, was published in end of 2018. End of 2019 by the Royal Philatelic Society London, and it was sold out in July 2020. But you can find this book in the library of the French Postal Museum, in the library of the Royal Philatelic Society London, of the British Library in London, of the Smithsonian Institute, and of the Collectors Club New York, and probably in other nice places. So I will tell you that if you wish to delve further into the local post and sharing post, try to read our book. And it is also at the Gibraltar National Archives and at the French Diplomatic Archives. I also have a copy of this book. So we wrote this book with Richard Garcia, my friend and co-author, and it is written in French and in English. And it is the first comprehensive and detailed account of the local and Sheffield Post. It was nearly 400 pages. It places them in context in a remarkable period in Morocco's postal history. It draws widely on hitherto unpublished information gleaned from the French Diplomatic Archives and the Gibraltar National Archives, examines the role played by the intrepid Rekas, the foot postman, and it is lavishly illustrated because we have more than 300 illustrations, of which 230 are items of postal history. And I have great news for you. In the recently published 2022 edition of the Varia Catalogue of the Stamps of the French colonies and French post offices abroad, the local post, almost all previous mistakes have been corrected. For the Sherifian Post, for the first time, the marks and stamps and the provisional stamp, the 7 foreigners, had been listed and priced. So we considered with Richard that our book had accomplished 3 key aims: sharing our research and knowledge with collectors and postal historians, improving catalog listings, and correcting historical errors. And we were very pleased to be awarded and proud to be awarded with 93 points and a gold medal at London 2022. Thank you for attention.
Thanks a lot, Maurice. Merci beaucoup. Fascinating topic and wonderful covers as well. Fantastic pieces to illustrate this very specific and captivating history. I think there are no similarities with any other country. Such complexity of, let's say, different services, variety of stamps. Also very, very particular the beginning of the Sherifian Post with these mags and stamps that are beautiful and in color and shape. So I think we can open now the discussion for questions. I have one question on my side before opening to other colleagues. So I was also very interested in the fact that the book was immediately sold out. So do you plan to have a new edition? Because I think many people remain frustrated not to have the possibility to buy it.
I would like to have a new edition, but unfortunately not, because the policy of the Royal Filatelista Society London, and we understand their policy is, as they told us, is not to make a new to republish a book. And it was sold out in 8 months. We didn't expect to have a so quick and huge success. We thought that we will sell all the print in 1 or 2 years, but it was amazing to see that so many people were interested. And what is really interesting also is that as far as I'm aware, the majority of the people who bought the book are not Morocco collectors. They were interested by the story. We have to say that with Richard, we made a lot of work of to promote the book, because first we had a meeting in Gibraltar in October 2019. It was a Morocco Day. It was an exhibition centered on British Morocco and Morocco. And it was the first time that we presented the book. And we had the chance that Richard Berry attended the meeting, and we were very surprised to see the first copy of our book that was just out of print, just out of the printer, not yet ready to be sent to the buyers. So the attendance at the Morocco Day, there were around 40 or 45 people, were the first to have a look to the book. Then in Monaco Phil, 2019 was a very important step for us, because we, thanks to the European Academy of Philately, we were able to present our work and the book with Richard, and then at the French Academy, and other meetings when we present our work despite the pandemic, because there were just after Monaco Field, it was the last, just after the French Academy in January 2020. Then the physical meetings were withdrawn, were over, and but we have a very nice reports in the philatelic press. For example, we had a very nice article in the British philatelic magazines, in the German philatelic magazines, thanks to Rainer von Scharpen, in the French philatelic magazines. So all this put together was probably a help to reach a sold out in a so short time. And last year, when I participated to the first Crawford Festival, I was asked to be one of the speakers at the last day, and I told to the people who was in the room that if they plan to write a book, the best agent is themselves. Because once you have given the green light saying, okay, it's okay, you can print, your job is not finished. It's only starting, because you have to promote your work and your book. And this is why probably we were so fast in the sale of the book. But to make it short, it was not be republished. The addendum, this is why we made an addendum, because it was to update with the new discoveries, like the Mazagan, the Mogador Marrakesh service that was believed to be philatelic and it's not philatelic, and why we have a stamp of 20 and not 25. And we also, in the addendum, we have a very important item that I forgot to add to my PowerPoint, and I apologize. Because in the meantime, I came through a fantastic cover with an issue. I can explain in 2 words. In 1913, in Rabat, there was a shortage of the 5 and 10 cents stamps of the Chauvin Post. They had already ordered a new printing, but it was not yet delivered. So this day, 13 October 1913, they overprinted by hand 0.10 on the 50 value and 0.5 on the 50 value, only 100 copies of each. And the following day, the new printing with the large margins came to the Rabat post office. So these stamps were in use only 1 day. Until the recent discovery, I was lucky to have one cover with one stamp, 0.10 on 50, one of the 3 or 4 items known commercially used. I'm not speaking of something that could be philatelic. But the discovery that I made and that we put in the addendum, that you can find in these libraries that I mentioned, is that I came through a commercial cover, with 5 stamps, so overprinted 0.10 on 50. So it was never seen before, but it was impossible to explain the rate, except delving through again the French diplomatic archives. And then I came through the poster with the poster of the French rates that were affixed on the wall of the French post office of Tangier for the public. And it was the discovery of a rate that was not known, that was specific to Morocco. Why? Because the German post office was in stiff competition against the French, because all the foreign post offices, the French, the British, the German, and the Spanish, were not compulsory profitable, but they were there to develop the image of their country, because they had probably in mind what was going to happen with the protectorate. And the German post office was fighting very in a stiff way against the French post office, was the main competitor. So the policy was to reduce rates, to make low cost, to downsize the prices, and the French post office, to compete against the German post office, had to put in action a special rate for only internal Morocco in 1907 or 8. And it's only thanks to this report that I found at the French Diplomatic Archive and the poster with all the official rates that we can explain this scope. So all these things are explained in detail in the addendum. So sorry, we cannot give you a new book.
Okay.
But we can hope that the current owners maybe one day will sell their copy. And
I was maybe a bit late in buying it, so I got from the Royal a copy, but without the cover. Let's say just a hard copy, but without the paper cover around it.
You have the copy of the book.
Yeah, I have the copy of the book, but without the.
And you don't have you don't have the soft cover.
Exactly, because was the one probably on show. Let's say.
I think that I have probably one soft cover left that I can provide you when you will come to the French Academy meeting for the day.
Thanks, Bruno.
And the addendum is very important too. Have you got the addendum?
No, I didn't.
Wow, if you bought the copy to the Royal, you should have received one. So I will try to give you an addendum also.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bruno.
Okay, Maurice, my first comment is, first of all, my best compliments for your discovery about Safi Marrakesh service by Mars, ordered by Mars. Use both, so I have two questions about it. First question, do you use both names? Did you find it in the National Archives or in diplomatic archives at La Courneuve?
Which one? The name of which? The name of the promoters?
No. You have used all the name of the both archives in Paris. So yes. National Archives and diplomatic archives at La Courneuve. Yes. So did you find this discovery in Paris or in La Courneuve?
No, in Nantes. No, in Nantes. In Nantes.
In Nantes. In Nantes. Les archives de consulaire. Les archives consulaires.
All for our main sources were the Gibraltar National Archives, yes. and the French Diplomatic Archives in Nantes and La Courneuve. And I examined all the files. It took me some years to go through all the files relating to the French Post Office. They are in the French Diplomatic Archives in Nantes and La Courneuve. And I examined all the files of La Courneuve and Nantes, even more in many cases they are duplicated. They are the same, but there are some differences. So to be sure, I have examined all the files of the French Post Office that are in the French Diplomatic Archives in La Courneuve and the French Diplomatic Archives in Nantes. In France, the sources were the French Diplomatic Archives. But you can maybe think why the French Post Office in Morocco is in the Diplomatic Archive.
No. I know.
Okay.
My question was, did you find it in the national or in the diplomatic? And
national in France, nothing. The national was Gibraltar.
Yes.
Okay. In France, only diplomatic archive, and it was in Nantes.
Okay. Yes, I know. Thank you. My second question is, maybe did you search and did you find any other archival sources for the other local posts as regards, for example, especially Carlo Morteo's Italian service in any other archives, Nantes or La Courneuve or the Kew Gardens or Gibraltar or Genoa, for example?
Yes, so first, the main information about Carlo Matteo is in the Gibraltar National Archive because of his links with people originating in Gibraltar or his and his family and so on. And the second thing is we have a book that was written by a relative of Carlo and Alberto Matteo about the story, not of Matteo especially, the story of the Italian entrepreneur coming from different areas of Italy, who came to Gibraltar and to Morocco in the 19th century. And in this book, that is very interesting, there is many mentions about the Matteo family, and this is how we know that he was from Genoa. He has a palace in Mogador and so on. And the references of the book are mentioned in our book, because in our book we try to mention for each chapter all the sources used for each chapter. And at the end, in the bibliography, you have all what we use about books in French, in Spanish, in British, in German, in English, sorry, in English, in German. And when there were books, there were philatelic newspapers, other sort of documents that are all listed in the bibliography of our book at the end and in each chapter. So this book about the Matteo family is quoted in our references.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There are many congratulations for your presentation in the chat for several friends that attended. Any other question? You satisfied all the curiosity, probably.
I would like to thank you all for your patience, because I see that I was large over the time that you asked me to respect, but it's my passion about this both themes, and also if one day I speak about the imperial powers like the French, British, Spanish, and German post offices, you have to think about 1 hour for me, because I have many things to say about that.
Exactly.
Maybe, but it's a project. I have in mind with Richard to write a second book about the 4. We have in mind with Richard to write a suite, a follow-up of this first book and the addendum about the 4 foreign post offices operating in Morocco, the French, the British, Spanish, and German. But it's a project, and we lack of time to do it, because this book took us 4 years. We first started with an article. It's an advice that I give to future authors. We started writing an article for the London Filatelist in 3 parts, and we were pleased that the publisher accepted to publish us in 3 times for 45 pages first, and was the basis of our work. And then when we saw that we received many positive reactions to our 3 articles published in 2017 in the London Filatelist, we said, well, maybe we have so many things to tell about this that we are going to work further, and why not writing a book? And this is we came to 400 pages in French and English.
Okay, so looking forward then to the next book.
Many thanks for this opportunity, and I hope that you have share my passion for Morocco postal history, and I would love that you will be interested by this country. It's so fascinating, and still unknown and deserves to be better known.
It will be difficult to become a collector of that because you took all the nicer item on the market. So.
No. I have been collecting. I started in '79, so I have been collecting for 44 years, and I'm an avid collector. I confess it, but you can find many things. Well, I'm not seeking to sell my collection, but you have many things on the market, and there are many things to do about the 6 different post offices operating in Morocco, 6 networks, because we have 21 local posts and the 5 others, and it's possible. It's a matter of patience, time, because you cannot collect in 3 minutes. So you need time, but you can, for example, choose to collect only, I don't know, French or British or German. Like most of the collectors are specialized on one of the 6 sections. Collecting the 6 sections, we are very little number of crazy guys who collect all the sections. And we had an interesting experience in 1937 in Tangier with the Italian consulate who organized a radio telegraphic station and organized the transport of mail to escape to the censorship of the Spanish, the British, and this part of 37 to 43 is one of the rarest of the modern Morocco in 20th centuries to find on cover. And and you know that as you are a member of SPLM, that we have published 2 very good articles recently. One of the professor of the University of Pisa.
Yeah, very interesting topic as well. Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody. Bruno.
Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you.
Final words from Bruno.
Yes, no, about the Maurice second book, you need to be quicker to buy it.
Absolutely.
I would like to be. I would like to be quick, but time flies, and
no, I have to be quicker. When you will publish, Bruno says I have to be quicker in buying it to get the soft cover.
You know, we have 24 hours in a day, and time flies. So it's our mission and our project, but we should need days of 48 hours.
Thanks a lot again, everybody, and we will see for the conference after the summer in October.
It was a pleasure.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.